The conference chamber hung in the darkness of space like a glittering jewel. Inside, representatives from 40 different species gathered around a circular table that seemed to float in the center of the room. Holographic displays flickered above each seat, showing data and images from countless worlds across the galaxy. Ambassador Martinez sat quietly in the human chair, his hands folded on the smooth surface before him. Next to him, Dr. Lisa Park adjusted her tablet, reviewing the information they would need for the discussion ahead. Both of them knew this meeting would determine humanity's future among the stars. A council leader raised one of his forearms, calling for silence. The ancient being's skin shimmered with colors that humans could barely perceive. His species had guided the Galactic Council for thousands of years, and his wisdom was respected by all. We gather today to discuss Earth's application for full membership in the Galactic Council, announced. His voice carried through the chamber without need for speakers. The human species has requested to join our community. However, concerns have been raised. Ambassador Al stood up from the section. His metallic body gleamed under the chamber lights, every surface polished to perfection. The had transformed themselves over centuries, replacing biological parts with advanced technology until little of their original forms remained. Council leader, I must speak against this application, Al said. His voice had a mechanical precision that never wavered. We have studied Earth extensively. What we have found is deeply troubling. Holographic images of Earth appeared above the center of the table. The planet rotated slowly, showing continents and oceans in vivid detail. Al gestured toward the images with one gleaming hand. Look at their world, he continued. Their cities are covered with vegetation. Trees grow on buildings that should be made of proper materials. They allow wild animals to roam through urban centers. This is not the mark of an advanced civilization. They have not fully committed to technological progress. Murmurs of agreement rippled through several delegations. They had many allies among species that believed technology was the only path forward. But then another voice spoke up. Of the rose from his seat, his form draped in living garments that shifted and changed color with his mood. They were known for their rejection of most technology, choosing to live in harmony with nature on their preserved worlds. They speak truly, but they draw the wrong conclusion, said. Humans have not abandoned technology. They have embraced it too much. Look at their machines. Look at their factories and computers and vehicles. They poison their world with such things while pretending to care for nature. They cannot be trusted. They wanted to speak, but gestured for him to wait. The council leader believed in letting all voices be heard before allowing responses. More images appeared in the air. Some showed forests growing on the sides of massive buildings. Others displayed machines working alongside natural ecosystems. Roads seemed to blend into the landscape rather than cutting through it. Power plants were covered in greenery while still producing vast amounts of energy. This is impossible, declared a delegate from the collective. One must choose. Either you build cities of technology and accept the loss of nature, or you preserve nature and live simply. You cannot have both. Agreed, said another council member. The humans show us images that make no sense. How can machines and forests exist in the same space? How can cities house billions while also supporting wildlife? They are either deceiving us or their civilization is about to collapse. Lisa leaned toward and whispered, "They really don't understand." Nodded slightly. He had expected this reaction. Every species they had encountered seemed locked into one philosophy or another. The idea that both could work together was foreign to them. They finally gestured toward the human delegation. Ambassador Martinez, you have heard the concerns. How do you respond? I stood up and looked around the chamber at the assembled species. Some watched with curiosity, others with obvious skepticism. A few seemed hostile to the very idea of human membership. Honored council leader, respected delegates, began. I understand your confusion. What you see on Earth does appear impossible. They are correct that we have not abandoned nature for pure technology. They are correct that we have not rejected technology to preserve nature. We have chosen a different path. There is no third path, Al interrupted. Our mathematical models have proven this across thousands of worlds. Advanced civilization requires the transformation of natural environments. This is simply fact. And our experience across 10,000 years shows that technology always destroys the natural balance, added. You cannot serve two masters. Remained calm. I understand why you believe that. Most species make a choice early in their development. They either embrace technology fully or reject it to save their world. But humans nearly destroyed Earth before we learned another way. The images above the table changed. Now they showed Earth as it had been 200 years ago. Polluted skies, dying oceans, forests disappearing at alarming rates, cities choked with smog and waste. We were on the path the describe continued. We chose technology without regard for nature, and we almost lost everything. Our climate changed, species went extinct. We poisoned our own home. He paused, letting the images sink in. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The pictures showed a world in crisis. But we did not give up technology, said. Instead, we asked a different question. Not technology or nature, but how can technology and nature work together? We studied how natural systems function. We learned from billions of years of evolution, and we built our machines to cooperate with life instead of replacing it. The images changed again, showing the transformation over decades. Cities being rebuilt, forests returning, technology and nature blending in ways that seemed impossible. You show us pretty pictures, Al said dismissively. But pictures prove nothing. Your systems cannot be efficient. Your energy production must be inadequate. Your cities cannot truly function with all that organic matter interfering with proper infrastructure. And your machines will eventually overwhelm the natural systems, insisted. It is only a matter of time before you must choose. Lisa stood up beside. Honored delegates, I am Dr. Lisa Park, Earth's chief scientist for biointegration systems. I have brought detailed data on our energy production, resource efficiency, and ecological health. Every measurement we have shows improvement, not decline. She transmitted files to each delegation's displays. Numbers and charts filled the holographic screens. Energy output that exceeded the most advanced worlds. Resource efficiency that produced zero waste. Biodiversity levels higher than they had been in centuries. Several delegates began studying the data with interest. Others dismissed it without looking. The data can be, someone muttered. Raised his arms again. It appears we have reached an impasse. The humans present information that contradicts our understanding, yet many of you doubt its authenticity. I saw his opportunity. Council leader, I propose a solution. Allow a delegation to visit Earth. See our world with your own eyes. Study our systems directly. Then make your judgment based on observation rather than assumption. The chamber fell silent. Species looked at each other, communicating through various means. Finally spoke. Your proposal has merit, Ambassador Martinez. We shall assemble a delegation representing both technological and naturalist philosophies. They will visit Earth and report their findings to this council. Based on their testimony, we will vote on your membership application. Al's metallic face showed no emotion, but his voice carried certainty. I volunteer to join this delegation. I will prove that human claims are exaggerated at best, false at worst. And I will join as well, added. I will show that their machines threaten their ecosystem, even if they do not yet see it. And Lisa exchanged glances. Both aliens expected to prove humanity wrong. Neither understood the shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, and Al watched the planet grow larger in the viewport. He had studied thousands of worlds during his long existence, and he knew what to expect. Cities would be cities. Nature would be nature. The two could not truly mix, despite what the humans claimed. Beside him shifted nervously in his seat. The living garments rippled with colors that suggested unease. I sense something strange, he murmured. The air here feels different. Your sensors are responding to high oxygen content, Al replied. The humans have not fully industrialized their atmosphere. Primitive but not surprising. Lisa Park sat across from them, hiding a smile. She had seen this reaction before from visitors who thought they understood Earth. Was up front with the pilot guiding them toward New Seattle. The shuttle broke through the clouds, and the city came into view. Both alien delegates leaned forward, their different forms of vision processing what seemed impossible. Buildings stretched toward the sky, but they were unlike any structures either visitor had seen before. Massive towers rose hundreds of stories high, their surfaces covered in cascading gardens. Trees grew from terraces and balconies, their roots visible through transparent sections of wall. Entire forests seemed to climb the sides of skyscrapers, fed by water systems that sparkled in the sunlight. This is a trick, Al said flatly. Those plants are artificial, holographic projections, perhaps. Feel free to test that theory when we land, Lisa replied calmly. The shuttle descended toward a landing platform that sat in the middle of a park. Not a park surrounded by buildings, but a park that seemed to flow through and around them. Streets curved between towers, but instead of concrete canyons, they looked more like forest paths that happened to pass by structures of glass and living wood. As they stepped out of the shuttle, gasped. His people were attuned to natural life, and he could feel it everywhere. Birds sang in the trees. Insects buzzed through flowering plants. A deer walked calmly across a nearby path, completely unconcerned by the people moving around it. Impossible, he whispered. Wild animals do not behave this way in cities. They do when the city is designed for them as much as for us, said, joining them from the front of the shuttle. Welcome to New Seattle. A woman approached them, her practical clothing marked with the symbols of the city's engineering department. She smiled and extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. I'm Brooks, she said. I manage the urban systems for this district. Ambassador Martinez asked me to show you how everything works. Al's mechanical sensors were already scanning the buildings around them. The data confused him. The structures were clearly solid and functional, housing thousands of people. But they also contained living systems that should have been incompatible with construction materials. How do you prevent the roots from destroying your foundations? He asked. It was the obvious problem. Plant roots would crack and break any building material over time. We don't prevent it, replied. We work with it. Come, I'll show you. She led them to the base of a nearby tower. The foundation was visible through transparent panels, and both aliens stared at what they saw. Roots from the trees above did not fight against the structure. They were integrated with it. Mechanical tendrils and biological roots intertwined, each supporting the other. The buildings and the trees grow together, explained. We use nanomachines that bond with plant cells. The roots actually strengthen the foundation instead of weakening it, and the building provides nutrients and water to the trees through internal systems. This should not work, Al insisted. Biological and mechanical systems operate on different principles. They cannot merge efficiently. Lisa stepped forward, pulling out her tablet. That's what everyone thought, but we studied how nature works at the cellular level. Living things are already machines in many ways. They process energy, repair themselves, and adapt to conditions. We just learned to build machines that could do the same things. She showed them detailed scans of the building materials. At the microscopic level, artificial and natural structures blended seamlessly. The machines were not fighting nature. They were becoming part of it. But what about efficiency? Al demanded. A proper building made of standard materials would use less energy and require less maintenance. Laughed. Actually, these buildings use almost no energy at all. The plants produce oxygen and absorb carbon dioxide, purifying the air naturally. Their evaporation cools the buildings in summer. They provide insulation in winter. We barely need heating or air conditioning systems. She pointed up at the tower above them. That building houses 5,000 people. It generates more energy than it uses through biosolar panels that combine photosynthesis with traditional solar collection. It produces zero waste because biological systems break down and recycle everything. And it's been standing for 60 years with minimal maintenance. Al's mechanical mind struggled with the numbers. By every measure, it should not work. Yet his sensors confirmed it was telling the truth. Had walked to one of the trees and placed his hand on its bark. His people could communicate with plants in ways others could not. He felt the tree's health, its contentment in this strange environment where organic and inorganic merged. The tree is happy," he said quietly. "It does not feel trapped or harmed. It feels supported." They walked deeper into the city, and the evidence mounted. Streets that looked like forest paths but could support heavy vehicles. The pavement was made of a material that allowed water and nutrients to pass through while remaining solid enough for traffic. Grass and small plants grew between lanes, fed by underground systems. Buildings breathed, showed them ventilation systems based on how plant stomata worked. Air moved through structures without fans or pumps, drawn by pressure differences created by the living walls. Water flowed through the city in streams and small rivers that looked natural, but were actually sophisticated purification systems. Mechanical filters and biological organisms worked together to clean water continuously. Fish swam in the streams, fed by both natural food sources and supplemental nutrients from automated systems. But the waste, Al said. 5 million people live in this city. Where does the waste go? Led them to a processing facility that looked like a hillside covered in flowers. Inside, they saw massive chambers where waste was broken down by combinations of machines and bacteria. Nothing was burned or buried. Everything was converted into something useful. Organic matter became fertilizer. Plastics were deconstructed at the molecular level and rebuilt into new materials. Zero waste, said proudly. Everything cycles back, just like in nature. Shook his head slowly. My people believe machines destroy nature, but here machines protect it. They do the harmful work that living things should not do. They watched as a swarm of small drones moved through a garden, checking plants for disease and carefully removing pests without chemicals. The machines worked with incredible precision, treating each plant individually. Meanwhile, bees and butterflies pollinated flowers nearby, unbothered by the drones. Mayor Jacob Lee met them at the city center, a plaza where a massive tree grew through an open space in the surrounding buildings. The tree was old, perhaps 200 years, and the structures had been built around it rather than cutting it down. This tree was here before New Seattle, Jacob explained. When we rebuilt the city, we made it the heart of our design. Everything radiates from here. You sacrificed valuable land for sentiment, Al observed. No, Jacob replied. We gained something precious. This tree produces oxygen for thousands of people. Its roots help manage groundwater. Its presence reduces stress and improves mental health for everyone who lives and works nearby. The value cannot be measured only in monetary terms. Lisa pulled up more data on her tablet. Ambassador Al, your people calculate efficiency based on resource input versus output. Look at these numbers. She showed him the comparative analysis. Cities produced vast amounts of energy and housed billions. But they also required enormous inputs of raw materials, produced toxic waste, and depleted resources constantly. New Seattle produced less total energy, but needed almost no external inputs. It recycled everything. It generated its own food in vertical farms integrated with residential towers. Its air and water were cleaner than the natural environment outside the city, and it supported more biodiversity than the forests that had existed before humans arrived. This is impossible," Al repeated, but his voice lacked certainty now. "It's not impossible," said gently. "It just requires thinking differently. Your people saw technology and nature as opposites. You chose technology, the chose nature. We humans asked, why choose? And found a third path." Gestured to the city around them. "Every building here is alive in a way, not conscious but living. The machines learn from the natural systems and adapt. The natural systems benefit from the machines' capabilities. Together, they create something neither could achieve alone." Looked up at the buildings covered in green life, at the birds nesting in carefully designed spaces, at the streams flowing clean and pure through the urban environment. His whole world view was shifting. We thought humans were too primitive to choose," he said slowly. "But you were wise enough not to choose at all." Al remained silent, his mechanical mind processing information that did not fit his understanding of reality. Everything he had believed about civilization and progress was being challenged by what he witnessed. The shuttle flew west over the continent, and below them stretched what had once been called the Great Plains. Al studied the landscape with his enhanced vision, expecting to see either industrial farming complexes or abandoned wilderness. What he saw instead made his processing systems struggle to categorize the data. Fields stretched to the horizon, but they were nothing like the monoculture crops of traditional agriculture. Different plants grew in complex patterns that seemed random but clearly were not. Between the cultivated areas, wild grasses swayed in the wind. Herds of animals grazed freely, moving between farmland and prairie. The machines worked throughout the landscape, but not in the way Al expected. They moved between plants with careful precision, each one performing specific tasks. Yet the machines never disturbed the natural elements around them. Birds landed on their surfaces without fear. Insects flew through their paths unbothered. This is the Midwest agricultural complex," Lisa explained as they descended. It feeds 3 billion people while maintaining 95% of the original prairie ecosystem. Impossible, Al said automatically. It was becoming his most common word on Earth. You keep saying that, replied with a smile. Yet here it is. They landed near a control center that looked more like a large barn than a technological facility. A man in practical work clothes walked out to meet them. His hands showed the calluses of someone who worked with soil and plants regularly. But he also carried a tablet displaying complex data streams. Stevens, he introduced himself. I manage this sector, about 2 million acres of integrated farmland. Looked around at the landscape. His senses told him this was a healthy ecosystem. Wild plants flourished. Animals moved naturally. Yet he could also see crops growing in abundance. The two realities seemed to contradict each other. How do you harvest crops without destroying the wild areas? He asked. Come see, said, leading them into the fields. They walked along a path that wound between different growing zones. On one side, wheat grew in neat rows. On the other, native wildflowers bloomed in profusion. A small stream ran between them, its banks covered with natural vegetation. A harvesting machine approached, moving slowly through the wheat. Its design was unlike anything Al had seen. Instead of rolling over everything in its path, it lifted itself on long legs that stepped carefully between plants. Sensors guided it around bird nests and small animal burrows. As it harvested wheat, it simultaneously scattered seeds for the next crop and deposited natural fertilizer. Traditional harvesting destroyed everything in the field, explained. We learned to make machines that could work more like grazing animals. They take what we need but leave the ecosystem intact. Lisa pulled up data on her tablet. The machines are controlled by artificial intelligence that learned from natural systems. The AI studied how animals graze, how they move through environments, how they process plant matter. Then we built machines that could do the same things but more efficiently. A cloud of small drones flew overhead. Al tracked them with his sensors, expecting them to be crop monitors or pest control. But their behavior was more complex than that. Those drones are pollinators, said, noticing where Al was looking. They work alongside natural bees and butterflies. When we first brought back the prairies, we didn't have enough natural pollinators. The drones filled that gap. Now we have plenty of natural pollinators, but the drones still help during peak seasons. Why not use only machines? Al asked. They would be more reliable. Because natural pollinators do things our machines can't, replied. They evolve and adapt constantly. They develop relationships with specific plants. They support the whole ecosystem in ways we're still discovering. Our drones are good, but nature is better at being nature. They reached a section where a woman knelt in the soil, her hands deep in the earth. She looked up as they approached and smiled broadly. Holly right, she said, standing and brushing dirt from her knees. Third-generation biofarmer. My grandmother worked this same land. Approached her curiously. Your family has farmed here through the transformation. We have, Holly confirmed. My grandmother used traditional methods, pesticides, heavy machinery that compacted the soil, single crops year after year. She produced good yields, but the land was dying. My father started the transition to biointegration. I've completed it. She gestured to the field around them. This soil is healthier now than it was 100 years ago. We grow more food with less water and zero chemicals. And look. She pointed to a prairie dog emerging from a burrow near the crops. The small animal sat up, checking its surroundings, then to feed on wild grasses growing between cultivated rows. My grandmother would have poisoned that prairie dog, Holly said quietly. She believed they were pests. Now we know they're essential. They aerate the soil, control certain plant species, provide food for predators. The whole system works better with them here. Al scanned the field with increasing confusion. His sensors showed crop yields that matched or exceeded the best industrial farms in the galaxy. But the same scans showed a thriving natural ecosystem. The two sets of data should not exist together. How do you protect crops from pests without chemicals? He demanded. We use integrated pest management, answered. The machines identify problem insects and remove them physically. We encourage predator species that eat pests naturally. We plant companion crops that repel harmful insects while attracting beneficial ones. And we've learned that a diverse ecosystem naturally keeps pests in check. Lisa showed them the underground sensor network. Thousands of tiny monitors tracked soil moisture, nutrient levels, root health, and microbial activity. The data fed into systems that adjusted watering and other inputs with precision that no traditional farmer could match. These sensors work with the machines, she explained. They detect what each plant needs individually. One wheat stalk might need more water while its neighbor needs less. Traditional farming treated whole fields the same way. We treat each plant as unique. But the cost, Al protested. Such systems must require enormous resources to build and maintain. Laughed, less than you'd think. The sensors are mostly biological themselves. We use modified organisms that communicate chemical signals. The system basically runs on sunlight and water. Maintenance is minimal because natural systems repair themselves. They visited the processing facilities where crops were cleaned and prepared for distribution. Here, too, machines and natural processes worked together. Mechanical sorters separated produce while biological systems tested for quality. Waste from processing fed back into the soil or became food for animals. A herd of cattle grazed on a hillside nearby, pointed to them with surprise. "You still raise animals? I thought humans had moved to artificial proteins." "Some people prefer synthetic meat," Holly said, "but many want the real thing. These cattle live good lives. They graze on land that can't be used for crops. They help manage the grasslands. And when their time comes, nothing is wasted." "The do not kill animals," said stiffly. "And the grow artificial meat in factories," Holly replied gently. "We respect both choices, but we've found a way that honors the animal's life while accepting that death is part of nature's cycle. These cattle die quickly and humanely. They feed millions, and their presence on the land actually helps other species thrive." Led them to an observation platform overlooking the entire sector. From this height, they could see the pattern clearly. Farmland and wilderness flowed together like a tapestry. Roads curved to avoid sensitive areas. Water management systems supported both crops and wetlands. Animal corridors connected wild spaces, allowing species to move freely despite human activity. Traditional agriculture tried to control nature completely, said. "We learned that working with nature is more productive. The soil organisms that break down organic matter also make nutrients available to crops. The predators that hunt in the wild areas also control pests in our fields. The water cycle that feeds wild plants also irrigates our crops. Lisa pulled up comparative data again. Farming produces high yields but depletes soil quickly. You must constantly add synthetic nutrients and deal with waste products. Farming uses only natural methods but feeds far fewer people per acre. She showed them Earth's numbers. Higher yields than farms. Less environmental impact than methods. Food security for billions while supporting more wild species than before humans farmed the land. Well, we produce 3 times more food than we did a century ago, Lisa continued. We use 90% less water. We produce zero agricultural pollution. And biodiversity has increased every year for the past 50 years. Al's mechanical mind performed the calculations again and again. The numbers were clear. Human agriculture was superior to both the technological approach of the and the naturalist approach of the. Yet it violated every principle he had been taught about farming and civilization. How did you discover this? He asked finally. What made humans think to try this approach? Holly answered, her voice sad. We nearly destroyed ourselves. A century and a half ago, Earth's population was growing fast. We used industrial farming that poisoned the soil and water. We cut down forests for more. We drove species extinct. We were starving despite having more farming technology than ever before. Then we realized something, added. Nature had been farming successfully for billions of years. Plants had been growing, animals had been eating, ecosystems had been thriving. We just needed to learn from what already worked. You studied nature as your teacher, said slowly. Not as something to preserve or replace, but as a guide. Exactly, Lisa confirmed. We analyzed how natural ecosystems maintain themselves, how they cycle nutrients, how they handle diversity, how they adapt to change. Then we built systems that worked the same way but produced food for humans. The sun was setting over the plains, painting the sky in brilliant colors. The fields glowed golden in the light. The shuttle crossed the coastline and headed out over the Pacific Ocean. Below them, the water stretched endlessly in all directions, its surface sparkling in the morning sun. But this ocean was not empty. Structures dotted the waves, some small and some massive, all of them seeming to float impossibly on the water's surface. The Pacific Platform Network announced, home to 8 million people and the most productive marine ecosystem on Earth. Al leaned forward to study the platforms. They were not the sterile metal structures he expected. Each one looked more organic than mechanical, with surfaces that curved and flowed like living things. Vegetation grew on upper levels. Water flowed between sections in channels that seemed natural despite being clearly engineered. How do they remain stable? He asked. Ocean conditions are unpredictable. Because they move with the water instead of fighting it, Lisa replied. Just like everything else we've shown you, these platforms work with nature rather than against it. They landed on one of the larger platforms, where Admiral Peter Grant waited to greet them. The Admiral's weathered face showed years of ocean life, and his stance adjusted automatically to the gentle rocking motion of the platform. Welcome to Pacific Central, he said. We'll start with the foundation systems. He led them to a viewing area where transparent panels showed what lay beneath the platform. Al and both stared in surprise at what they saw. The platform did not float on air-filled chambers or simple buoyancy. Instead, its underside was covered in structures that looked like coral reefs. Fish swam through the formations. Seaweed grew in thick forests. Octopuses moved between hiding places. The entire underside of the platform was a thriving marine habitat. These are artificial reefs, Peter explained. But artificial doesn't mean dead. We build the initial structures using materials that encourage coral and other organisms to settle. Over time, natural growth takes over. The platforms become part of the ecosystem. But how does this support the weight? Al demanded. Organic matter is not structurally sound enough. A woman in diving gear approached them, pulling off her mask. A marine systems engineer, she said. The reef doesn't support the weight alone. The platform uses a combination of biological structure and nanomachine reinforcement. The living organisms provide flexibility and self-repair. The machines provide strength and stability. Together, they create a foundation that can last centuries. She pulled up holographic displays showing the platform's interior systems. Water flowed through channels that served multiple purposes: cooling systems for inhabited areas, nutrient distribution for growing food, habitat for marine life. All functions overlapped and supported each other. We learned from coral reefs and kelp forests, continued. They survive massive storms by bending instead of breaking. Our platforms do the same. When a wave hits, the whole structure flexes slightly. The organic components absorb shock. The mechanical systems distribute stress. Nothing fights the ocean's power directly. They toured the residential areas, where families lived in spaces that felt more like than apartments. Windows showed the ocean in all directions. Gardens grew on every level, fed by mist systems that used seawater converted to fresh water. Children played in parks where waves could be heard but not felt, protected by the platform's design but still connected to the sea. How do you generate power? Al asked, looking for the massive reactors or solar arrays he expected. Peter pointed down at the water. The waves themselves. The platforms move with wave motion, and that movement drives generators throughout the structure. We also use temperature differences between surface and deep water. And we have biosolar panels that combine photosynthesis with traditional solar collection. We produce more energy than we need. He walked to the edge of the platform and looked down at the water below. He could sense the life teeming there. Fish in greater numbers than he had seen in any natural ocean. Coral in vibrant health. Even whales passed beneath the platforms, apparently comfortable with the human structures. The ocean is healthier here than in the open water, he said in wonder. How is this possible? The platforms create habitat, explained. In the open ocean, most life concentrates near coasts or around natural features. The deep ocean is actually quite empty. Our platforms give life something to grow on, places to hide, sources of food. We're not taking from the ocean, we're adding to it. She showed them the aquaculture systems. Fish farms that looked nothing like the industrial facilities of the past. Instead, they resembled natural reef communities. Multiple species lived together, each playing a role in the ecosystem. Predator fish controlled populations. Cleaner fish removed parasites. Scavengers consumed waste. Machines monitored health and removed sick individuals before disease could spread. We raise fish for food, yes, said. But we also support wild populations. Young fish from the wild use our platforms as nurseries. Protected from predators, they grow faster and stronger. Then they return to the open ocean. Wild fish populations have tripled since we built these platforms. Al's sensors analyzed the water quality. The readings shocked him. The water near the platforms was cleaner than water hundreds of miles from any human activity. Pollution levels were zero. Oxygen content was high. The chemical balance supported life better than most natural conditions. Your water treatment systems must be massive, he said. They are, Peter agreed, but not in the way you think. Come see. They descended several levels to where water flowed through vast chambers filled with life. Kelp grew in thick forests, swaying with the current. Shellfish covered surfaces, filtering particles from the water. Specialized bacteria processed nitrogen and other compounds. Small fish moved through the forests, eating algae and smaller organisms. This is our water treatment plant, Peter said. It's alive. The biological systems filter and purify water continuously. The machines monitor conditions and adjust flow rates, but the living organisms do most of the actual work. Lisa pulled up the data showing how much water flowed through these systems daily. Billions of gallons, all processed to higher purity than any mechanical filter could achieve. And the living systems required almost no maintenance. They grew and adapted naturally. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the platform. Peter immediately pulled out his communicator, his expression turning serious as he listened to the incoming message. "What's happening?" asked. "A distress call from a mining colony," Peter replied. "Asteroid strike. Their environmental systems are failing." Al stepped forward quickly. "Where? Which colony?" "A designation V74 in the Outer Rim," Peter read from his device. "Toxic atmosphere developing. They're requesting immediate evacuation support." Al's mechanical face could not show emotion, but his voice carried urgency. V74 houses 12,000. If their environmental systems have failed, they have perhaps 6 of your hours before the atmosphere becomes lethal. "How far away?" asked Peter. 3 days' travel for our fastest ships," Peter replied. But evacuation vessels couldn't arrive for at least 5 days. Ships could reach them in 4 days, Al said. But we do not have the technology to repair atmospheric systems quickly enough. The colonists will die before we can evacuate them. Looked distressed. They have no ships that could help. We cannot even reach them in time. I turned to Peter. Can we help? Peter was already accessing his command systems. We have atmospheric processors designed for rapid deployment. They were built for emergency terraforming, but they might work for this. How fast can we get them there? Pressed. The processors can be launched immediately, Peter said. They're self-deploying, 3 days travel time. 3 days is too long, Al said flatly. The atmosphere will become toxic in 6 hours. I had been working on her own tablet. She looked up with an intense expression. What if we don't try to repair their systems? What if we give them a new atmosphere? Everyone turned to look at her. She pulled up schematics on the main display. Our atmospheric processors include nanoforest units, she explained. They're designed to establish breathable atmosphere on lifeless rocks. Each unit contains billions of nanomachines and engineered organisms that work together to convert atmosphere and generate oxygen. That would take weeks, Al objected. Normally, yes, agreed. But these are designed for rapid deployment in emergencies. They're self-replicating. One unit becomes two, two become four. Given enough raw materials, they can establish breathable atmosphere in hours instead of weeks. The colony is on a rocky planet, Al said slowly, his mechanical mind processing possibilities. There would be raw materials available, but the toxic compounds from their damaged systems. The organisms are designed to process toxins, Lisa interjected. That's one of their primary functions. They break down harmful compounds and convert them to neutral or beneficial ones. Peter was already coordinating with his team. We can launch 20 processor units within the hour. They'll arrive in 3 days. If they work as designed, they should establish breathable atmosphere within 4 to 6 hours of deployment. That gives the colonists 9 to 11 hours total, calculated. It will be close. Al stood silent for a long moment. His people had designed V-7-4 using the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Yet now their colonists would die unless humans saved them with a method that combined machines and living organisms in ways had never considered. "Send your processors," he said finally, "and thank you." The next hours were tense. Peter coordinated the launch from Pacific Central while monitored the processors as they traveled. Lisa provided technical support, explaining the systems to engineers who would need to deploy them. Sat with Al and all of them watching the countdown. The colony had 6 hours of safe atmosphere remaining. The processors would arrive in 3 days. Everything depended on the deployment working perfectly. "Well, why do you help us?" Al asked quietly. "My people have questioned your civilization. We have doubted your claims. We came to Earth expecting to prove you wrong." Because you need help," replied simply. "That's enough reason." 3 days later, they received word that the processors had arrived at V-7-4. The colonists, now down to less than an hour of breathable air, deployed the units according to instructions. The nanoforest units activated, spreading across the colony's surface like living silver. They consumed rock the Galactic Council chamber, filled once again with representatives from 40 species. 3 weeks had passed since the delegation returned from Earth, and the testimony they provided had created intense debate across the galaxy. Now it was time for the final decision on humanity's membership application. A council leader called the assembly to order. His ancient eyes surveyed the gathered species with the wisdom of countless centuries. "We have heard preliminary reports from our delegation. Ambassador Al, you led the investigation. Present your findings." Al stood, his metallic form gleaming under the chamber lights. When he had left for Earth, he had been certain of what he would find. Now his voice carried a different tone entirely. "Honored Council, I must begin with an admission. I went to Earth expecting to prove the humans were either lying or deluded. I believed their claims violated fundamental laws of civilization and technology." He paused. "I was completely wrong." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many species had expected Al to condemn humanity's application. "Everything the humans claimed is true," Al continued. "Their cities house billions while supporting thriving ecosystems. Their agriculture produces more food than our most advanced systems while improving environmental health. Their ocean platforms generate massive energy while healing marine environments. They have achieved what our mathematical models said was impossible. He activated holographic displays showing the data he had collected. City efficiency ratings that exceeded standards. Agricultural output that surpassed all known methods. Energy production with zero pollution. Every measurement supported his words. But more important than the numbers is the principle, Al said. The civilization chose to pursue technology exclusively. We believed nature was inefficient and had to be replaced with superior mechanical systems. We were wrong. Nature is the ultimate engineer, perfected over billions of years. Humans learned to combine our technological precision with nature's adaptive efficiency. The result is superior to either approach alone. He turned to face the council members directly. The civilization is stagnating. We have pushed our technological philosophy as far as it can go. We require increasing resources to maintain our systems. Our worlds are stable but not growing. I believe we need what humanity has discovered. The chamber erupted in discussion. Admitting their civilization needed help was unheard of. Raised his arms for silence, then gestured to representative of the you also investigated Earth. What are your findings? Rose, his living garments shifting through colors that displayed his emotional state. Blues and greens of reflection, oranges of surprise, purples of humility. My people chose differently than he began. We rejected technology to preserve nature. We believed machines could only harm the natural balance. We have maintained our pristine worlds for 10,000 years. He paused. But we have not thrived. His words shocked many council members. They were known for their dedication to natural preservation. Our population grows slowly, continued. We cannot expand because we refuse the tools that would let us settle new worlds without harming them. We watch species suffer from diseases we could cure with technology we refuse to use. We see our people struggle with problems that machines could solve while we insist on natural solutions alone. He activated his own displays showing worlds. They were beautiful, covered in untouched wilderness. But the population centers were small and struggling. Resources were limited. Growth was impossible without abandoning their principles. On Earth, I saw machines protecting nature, said, doing the harmful work that living things should not do, treating individual plants with care no natural farmer could provide, monitoring ecosystems with precision that helps them thrive. The humans use technology to serve nature, not replace it. He looked around the chamber. The people need what humanity has learned. We need to understand that using technology wisely is not betraying nature. It is serving nature more effectively. He nodded slowly. Your testimonies are compelling, but I know some council members have concerns. Let us hear them. A delegate from the collective stood. The humans may have succeeded on their own world, but can their methods work elsewhere? What proof do we have that biointegration functions on different planets with different conditions? Rose to respond. Lisa stood beside him, ready with data. We anticipated this question. Over the past century, humanity has helped terraform 12 previously lifeless moons and asteroids in our solar system. Each has different conditions, different gravity, different light levels, different available resources. Biointegration has worked on all of them. Lisa displayed the results. Rocky moons now covered in carefully designed ecosystems. Asteroid mining operations that left environments better than they found them. Every project showed the same success. Technology and nature working together produced superior results. Another delegate spoke up. But what of cost? Surely these complex systems require vast resources to implement. Less than purely technological or purely natural approaches, Lisa replied. Biointegrated systems are self-maintaining. They repair themselves. They adapt to changing conditions. Initial setup requires careful design, but ongoing costs are minimal. Our analysis shows biointegration is actually the most economically efficient approach long-term. A third concern was raised. How do we know humans will share this knowledge? This technology could give them enormous economic and strategic advantages. Why would they not keep it for themselves? The chamber fell silent, waiting for response. This was the question that mattered most. Every species understood that knowledge was power. Sharing advanced technology with potential competitors seemed foolish. Looked around the chamber. meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of species. Because hoarding knowledge would make us rich, but alone, sharing knowledge will make everyone stronger together. He nodded to Lisa, who transmitted a massive data package to every delegation's system. The council members looked at their displays in shock as information flooded in. That package contains everything, explained. Complete technical specifications for biointegration systems, detailed studies of how we developed them, step-by-step guides for implementing them on different world types, educational curricula for training specialists, everything we know freely given. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates argued with each other in dozens of languages. Some were outraged at humanity's generosity, suspicious of hidden motives. Others were amazed. Still others were already reviewing the data hungrily. Called for order repeatedly before the noise finally settled. Ambassador Martinez, your offer is unprecedented in council history. Species do not share such valuable knowledge freely. What do you want in return? A better galaxy, said simply. Humanity learned our greatest lessons through near disaster. We almost destroyed Earth. Billions suffered before we found a better way. If we can help other species avoid that suffering, if we can help civilizations thrive instead of merely survive, then the galaxy becomes a better place for everyone. Lisa stepped forward. We're not being purely altruistic. We benefit too. Each species that learns biointegration will adapt it to their unique circumstances. They'll discover things we never thought of. They'll develop innovations we can learn from. By sharing freely, we create a galaxy full of partners working on the same problems instead of competitors hoarding secrets. A delegate who had been silent until now stood. She represented one of the smaller species often overlooked in council politics. The humans saved colonists last week, not for payment, not for advantage, simply because they needed help. Perhaps their offer now is genuine. It is confirmed. But I want to be clear about something. This knowledge is powerful. It can heal worlds or harm them if misused. We ask that species using biointegration commit to certain principles. Respect for life, both mechanical and biological. Commitment to improvement over exploitation. Willingness to share discoveries. We're not demanding legal agreements. We're asking for ethical commitments. Al spoke up again. The government has already decided to pursue biointegration. We will honor the principles Ambassador Martinez describes. We will share what we learn, and we formally support Earth's membership in this council. They add their support as well, declared. Humanity has shown us a path we did not know existed. They deserve recognition. Other delegates began standing, one by one, declaring their support. Some species remained uncertain, but none spoke against the application anymore. We waited until the declarations finished, then spoke with formal authority. The Galactic Council will now vote on Earth's membership application. Those in favor. Lights appeared above each delegation's position. Counted them as they lit up. 20 votes. 25, 30, 35. Finally, all 40 delegations showed support. The vote is unanimous, announced. Earth is granted full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and responsibilities thereof. The chamber filled with sounds of approval from various species. Felt Lisa squeeze his shoulder in celebration. They had done it. But was not finished. Additionally, the Council proposes the establishment of the Galactic Biointegration Institute, to be located on Earth. This institute will serve as a center for research, education, and collaboration on biointegration methods. Earth will administer it, but all species may participate. Do the human delegates accept this responsibility? Looked at Lisa, who nodded enthusiastically. We accept with honor, said. Earth will welcome scientists and students from across the galaxy. As the formal session concluded, delegates crowded around the human representatives. Some wanted to discuss the technical data immediately. Others wanted to schedule visits to Earth. Still others simply wanted to express amazement at what humanity had achieved. Al approached privately. I owe you an apology. I came to Earth with arrogance and certainty. I left with humility and questions. Your species has taught me more in 3 weeks than I learned in centuries before. You were open to learning, replied. That's the most important quality any species can have. Over the following weeks, ships began arriving at Earth in unprecedented numbers. Scientists from the worlds came to study biointegration techniques. Naturalists came to see how technology could serve nature. Representatives from dozens of other species came simply to witness what everyone now called the Earth approach. A man named Sam led the educational programs. He had spent his career teaching biointegration to human students, and now he adapted his methods for alien minds. The challenges were immense. Each species thought differently, had different needs, faced different environmental conditions on their worlds. But Sam approached the task with the same principle that guided all of Earth's biointegration work. Don't fight differences. Work with them. He learned how each species understood the world, then explained biointegration in terms that made sense to them. One evening, stood on a platform overlooking the new institute campus. Hundreds of buildings were being constructed using the same biointegration methods they would teach. Trees grew with structures. Machines worked alongside natural systems. Students from 40 different species walked paths between facilities, discussing ideas that would shape the galaxy's future. Lisa joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one and stood beside him in comfortable silence for a moment. "Oh, we changed everything," she said quietly. "Oh, we showed them a different option," corrected. "They're the ones choosing to change." "And do you think it will work?" Lisa asked. "Across the whole galaxy?" We watched a student helping a student understand a piece of equipment. 2 species that had been philosophically opposed for, now working together on shared problems. "I think we've given them the best chance possible," he said. "Nature and technology don't have to be enemies. Cooperation works better than competition. These are lessons humanity learned the hard way. Now we're sharing them, and the galaxy is listening." In orbit above Earth, construction began on the first biointegration research station. It would be a place where species could experiment with new methods, test adaptations for different worlds, and develop innovations together. The station's design followed Earth principles. Living systems integrated with mechanical ones. Natural processes enhanced by technological precision. A structure that would grow and adapt over time, just like the civilization it would serve. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself before learning to balance technology and nature. That painful lesson had led to wisdom that now spread across the stars. Earth had become not just a member of galactic civilization, but a teacher and guide. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility. A galaxy where every species could learn from each other, where technology served life instead of replacing it, where the false choice between progress and preservation was finally abandoned. Raised his coffee cup in a small salute to the stars above. "Welcome to the Earth approach," he said softly. And across the galaxy, civilizations began to understand what humans had learned through hardship and hope. The best path forward was not choosing between nature and machines, but learning to make them thrive side by side. Decay and toxic gas reproducing exponentially. Within 2 hours, the first breathable air began to appear. Within 4 hours, the atmosphere inside the colony was stabilizing. Within 6 hours, it was safe to breathe without assistance. 12,000 lives saved by technology that never should have existed, built by humans who refused to choose between nature and machines. Al received the confirmation and stood silently for a moment. Then he turned to face the humans. "I was wrong," he said, "about everything." Birds flew overhead in formation, returning to their nests. In the distance, a harvesting machine carefully made its way through crops while deer grazed peacefully nearby. Al finally spoke, his voice lacking its usual certainty. "I have studied agriculture across hundreds of worlds. I have seen every method known to galactic civilization. What you have done here should not be possible." "Should not be," said quietly, "but is." "There's more to see," Lisa said. "The agricultural regions will interest you even more." As they returned to the shuttle, both aliens were quiet. They had expected to find lies or failure. Instead, they had found something that should not exist but clearly did. And neither of them knew what to make of it. What they would actually find on Earth. "Excellent," declared. "The delegation will depart for Earth within one standard cycle. This council is adjourned until we receive their report." As the various species filed out of the chamber, Lisa turned to. "They think we're either liars or fools." "I know," replied with a slight smile. "Wait until they see New Seattle.